Welcome back to part two of our conversation with Wylie Robinson, co-founder and former CEO of Rumpl. In this episode, we move beyond the operational grind and dig into the soul of the brand, how Rumpl has scaled while staying authentic, approachable, and mission-driven. Wylie opens up about why growth doesn't have to mean selling out, what he's most proud of the brand's journey, and how he finds balance as a founder, dad, and outdoor adventurer. Let's dive back in.
When you look back at the foundation of Rumpl, I would say that one of the things that you guys have done is set a super solid foundation that has set you up for like moments like this. Maybe not, you didn't know that at the time, but like now you're here and now you have this amazing business, you have this amazing product, you have amazing customers, and you're able to still survive this moment in time because of those things. What are some of those things that you guys did to build that foundation of success for the business? Like looking back, that you're like, you know what, like we really focused on this and those things are going to get us through this challenge.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the things that I'm most happy about setting as foundational elements for the brand are necessarily the things that are going to carry us through this particular challenge. But like maybe taking a step back, this tariff challenge aside, I'm really happy that Rumpl is genderless, like there's no fit to our product. It's a simple product. I like the fact that we have a simple product that's like visually driven. We have a lot of SKUs, we have a lot of prints and everything, but we have a really, really low return rate. It's like less than 1%. Because generally the only reason people are going to return our product is manufacturer defect. They're not going to get it and it doesn't fit them. And so, I didn't start Rumpl with any sort of business plan or like, even notion that it would be successful. But in hindsight, the fact that we don't have fit and gender and sizing has been like a really, really valuable thing for us. To this day, we have a super lean customer service team. We can basically assume that all the inventory we have in our warehouse is not liable. It's good inventory. It's not going to go bad. It's not going to, I mean, there are some styles that sell faster than others, obviously, and some that are slower movers, but generally speaking, like we can sell all that inventory. And so in times like this, where we're planning as if we only have the inventory that's onshore, we know that we can actually extract cash out of that inventory. I think not a lot of business, but certainly some businesses, like if they have something that really kind of like goes out of season or they just ordered the wrong sizes, like that's going to be hard to pull margin out of those units. And so, broadly speaking, I'm glad that we don't have gender and fit and sizing. And I think to some degree that's helping us through this current situation. But that's one thing that I think about all the time when I talk to other founders, like the complexity of their inventory is much, much broader than ours. We still obviously have to like manage our cash really well and make sure that we're not buying too much so we don't get over inventoried. We've had that problem too before. But again, like we very rarely have inventory in our warehouse that's just like no good, that we can't do anything with. The only time that's ever really happened is we had an NFL license and didn't sell through all of the inventory before the terms of our license expired. So we had to basically donate the rest of it. But other than that, we haven't had to just like flush inventory before, which I know a lot of other brands do.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, anyone listening that hasn't started a business yet, definitely take that pro tip. I didn't even think about that, but it's so true. I mean, I think the worst business to start is like a shoe business. Like the amount of sizes and SKUs and the return and people's different unique feet. I mean, that is like, but shoes are important too. So maybe there's
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Portland and like this is like, footwear USA. And I'm just so surprised how many multi-billion-dollar footwear companies there can be. And it's like, wow, yeah, I guess like
everybody's got to wear shoes.
Yeah, totally.
Or sandals or whatever. Yeah. So I think one of the things I did want to talk to you about was a notion that, okay, so one of the things I want to talk to you about was the idea that to be an authentic brand, you have to kind of stay small, and that authenticity equals staying small. And I want to give you the kind of stage to debunk that, because I think, and I think what you think and what we know is that you can do both. And I would love to hear more. There's a million podcasts out there. Wylie is amazing on podcasts. If you want to hear more of the Brand Story podcast, there's a bunch of those out there. But I wanted to talk to Wylie today about some things that he hasn't covered on podcasts. And this is one of them. So tell me a little bit more about why you don't have to stay small to stay authentic.
I mean, I think that, so obviously small businesses are inherently authentic because generally small businesses are going to be run by the founder. The founder is going to be all over them, front and center. And so like that is the origin of the business, right? Is right there. You're getting to talk to the founder. The founder's touching the business very closely. But I think that that can sometimes get confused with just this idea that you like lose soul when you grow. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that, you know, you just become a bigger entity that needs to service more customers. Sure, maybe you lose that direct one-to-one authentic connection with that relatively smaller pool of original adopters or original consumers. But I don't think that businesses should get criticized or blamed for being successful. I think that, you know, one thing we talked about before recording here is like, you know, I'm obviously extremely proud of Rumpl and how far it's come and everything, but like, I'm not necessarily passionate about blankets. I think if it wasn't Rumpl, I would have probably tried my hand at some other type of business. And for me, like the thing that keeps me really excited about Rumpl is just like the never ending puzzle that you're trying to solve in growing a business. And I'm taking a little bit of a tangent here away from like the topic of authenticity, but I think that like, you know, if you set out to design great products for people and the type of use of the product you're making is really broad, you should realize that opportunity. You know, like if you're making like a backcountry ski binding, for instance, and like there's a narrow group of people that like backcountry ski bindings, if you divert from that, then sure, like that could be problematic to your original core group of consumers. But like in our case, we're just making a blanket. And if somebody that was an original adopter of Rumpl now thinks that we're, you know, sold out or something like that because we talk to people through Dick's Sporting Goods and it's more of like a sporting goods store, then I would just say, take a step back and look at what the product is. It's just a blanket, you know, it's not for any specific use case. It's actually a very versatile product. And so why shouldn't we try to realize all the opportunity we can?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I would take that one step further. Maybe I feel like maybe your answer, you're not giving yourself enough credit. Like you are a super outdoorsy guy, right? And like you wanted to create this product because you had a moment in time where you're like, I wish I had it, right? And I think that that's how a lot of amazing products are born. And so, I mean, I think like you're not selling out to the point where you're like in West Elm and or maybe you could be. I don't know. But like I guess yeah, I guess you'd have no problem with that. I mean, that's where I just in my mind Rumpl is so core to outdoors and so core to the outdoor experience and it's so versatile in that outdoor environment, right? Like for me, I take it camping, I've taken it ice climbing. I might just throw it in my car and throw it over my kids if they're cold, right? Like there's many use cases for it, but I resonate with the brand because I'm an outdoorsy person and that's why the brand resonates with me. Whereas like if I was downtown Salt Lake City and I saw it in West Elm, I don't know if I would have that same affinity. So I think maybe that's where like I do feel like you know that the path to authenticity. Yes, it's I don't like it. I didn't like it when you said it's just a blanket because I feel like it means it's more than that to a lot of people, right? And like you're intentional about how you source it with recycled material and things like that. So anyway, this is a fun podcast because we get to talk back and forth and talk about these nuanced things. But that's where I think maybe like that's where I feel like you probably do have a vision for that authenticity and you aren't selling out. It's like you're pushing down that pathway. But like you said, I don't know, would you sell the West Elm and just
Yeah, totally. In fact, we've sold to Restoration Hardware before. And I mean, I think like maybe we just did a good job for you, you know, as a consumer of the brand when we kind of started and sort of laid things out and set the brand foundation and everything. And it was set in a way that allowed for expansion to new consumers without offending you or alienating you in some way. But like the kind of origin of the brand and the origin of the product did come from an authentic place. It wasn't like we saw some white space in the market or something and wanted to go attack that white space. There was no real like precedent for our category. It was just like this makes a ton of sense to us as two outdoorsy guys, that me and my co-founder, that like we love these materials. We use these materials every day. We both would wear puffy jackets to go to the grocery store in San Francisco. And it just made a ton of sense to us as people that preferred those materials. And so maybe that authenticity from the origins is just resonant with you. And, we've been able to kind of grow and expand and try new things without alienating a core original consumer like you. I don't know. I guess.
I don't know. So like I wrote something out and like, it's like, did you see the Kim Kardashian and the North Face collab? Yeah. Like for me, that like to me that felt like selling out. I'm like, on the one hand, how are you gonna sponsor these trips to these great places across the world, but then like you're gonna partner with Kim Kardashian? It's amazing. She's amazing for her own reasons. Like she is incredible, an amazing business owner. I'm sure her product is great, right? But I still think that was like, for me, I couldn't wrap my head around that. And so like, yeah, I don't know, like that, maybe that's what we're talking about, is like, how do you go upper funnel? Like, and North Face is probably saying the same. Well, it's just outdoor gear. We just sell a puffy that you wear walking downtown in San Francisco, right? Like it's, yes, you can go climb big mountains and do cool things with it, but I don't know. So
I think a lot of that has to do with like where you're starting, you specifically, your starting point is for the brand. Like if TNF to you means top of the peak, ultimate performance, environmental advocacy, sponsoring the most core athletes, if it means all those things in your mind, then this collab makes no sense. If to you North Face means like, the urban explorer and you're wearing it in an urban environment, it's way more fashion focused, then this collab totally makes sense. But I think it's actually more on the viewer's perception of the brand and what they deem it needs to stand for. So maybe that's like a good sort of narrative into why Rumpl has been able to, obviously these are different continents here, North Face and Rumpl, but like perhaps Rumpl has been able to extend into some new channels and categories authentically because people didn't have like a really strong preconceived notion about what it should be when they interacted with it. I think most people, when they saw Rumpl for the first time, are like, oh, it's like a cool outdoor blanket that like, uses these materials that I know being good in the outdoors, and it makes sense that they would be used on a blanket. And like, that's it. Like we never claimed to be like this peak performance, sponsoring the most hardcore athletes, like elite thing. And so we can move sort of freely under the assumption that this is just a blanket for outdoor use. And it's not going to offend people. Yeah, or indoor. And it's not going to offend or alienate people that are maybe more fixated on like the technical and performance aspects of a brand like North Face.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it's tricky, right? Because like, yeah, your total addressable market for a blanket, if you're saying it's literally just a blanket, is way bigger than if it is for outdoorsy people who ice climb, ski, go, whatever, backcountry hut, ski touring, right? Like that niche. But I mean, I do wonder if like, if you're too broad with your marketing and you're trying to go after that total addressable market, then suddenly you get watered down. You mean less to this person. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe another way of answering this is when I'll never forget this actually. So we went to Outdoor Retailer like a month or two after. So Rumpl's originally a Kickstarter business, and we closed our Kickstarter, did well, we funded it and everything. And then we decided to go to Outdoor Retailer like 2 months after the Kickstarter closed. Like we didn't even have product. We basically were showing just like these sort of like working construction samples at the show. We didn't have any, wholesale business. So there's really no point in us being there, but we went and exhibited. And more than anything, it was valuable for me to just kind of check out the landscape, the lay of the land of these kind of like emerging new outdoor brands. And, we were in the same general region of the show. This is when it was called Venture Out. and we were in the same region as like Topo Designs, Snow Peak, Polar Stuff. There are a couple of these new outdoor brands that were emerging. And I'll never forget, I walked over to all of these booths to introduce myself and basically just make some connections in the industry. And I felt like I was like an 8-year-old kid going into a skateboard shop. Like everyone was so cool and didn't want to like really engage, and like they were kind of standoffish. And I thought that was weird. I was like, what's the deal? I do all the stuff that I assume you all do. And, we're here in the same building at the same trade show. Like,
Yeah.
why are we not just immediately, able to have a conversation? And so from day one of our values has been be approachable. Part of that is because the experience and the way that I viewed some of these new emerging outdoor brands was like kind of standoffish, like kind of too cool.
Mhm.
And so Rumpl has always been really accepting and open and approachable, I think, to consumers from all walks of life, whether you're super hardcore outdoorsy or not outdoorsy at all, but just could find use for our product while you're drinking wine on your patio or something. Like, I think that we can talk to all of those people authentically. And because it started from day one as the goal was to be an approachable brand. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, so like when we had previously talked about this, I think that the idea of selling out, like we're gonna dismiss that because as you have grown Rumpl and as you have scaled, you have been able to donate millions of dollars. You have healthcare for all of your employees. You're recycling plastic water bottles, right? You're doing all of these really cool things. And as you have been able to scale, you've only been able to do more of that, right? And I
Mhm.
think that that's where I think, just because you're big or who, I mean, what's the definition of big anyway, right? Like,
We're definitely not big.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
still small in the big scheme of the business world, but at the same time, probably what many brands aspire to be, especially in, the time frame that you guys have done it. So it's all relative, but point being that as you have been able to scale and grow, you have been able to just amplify your good. And I think that that's really amazing and noteworthy.
Yeah, if you're not like growing at the expense of some other group or person or interest, I think it's good for businesses to grow big. They employ more people. In our case, like we are able to donate more. We recycle more plastic content that's been thrown away otherwise. Like there's a lot of benefit to this business being here. Really, one of the only like sort of tangible negatives of the business growing, which is something that we choose to offset, is just the carbon emissions that we put out. And we offset those. We pay for that every year. We pay for projects that sequester carbon in excess of the amount of carbon that we put out. And so, and a lot of businesses do this too. You can join Climate Neutral. I think it's called the Climate Project now. But like you can literally just measure your carbon and then write a check and fund projects that plant trees or tarp landfills or do things that prevents carbon from being released into the air. And so other than that, like we employ people, we pay our corporate taxes, we give families, not just employees, but we give families healthcare. We, again, we mentioned like all the plastic that we pull out of landfills. We donate to environmental causes and nonprofits. Like none of that stuff would happen if the business didn't exist. And so as long as you kind of set your framework and your model up from the beginning that you're not growing at the expense of anything, I think it's totally fine and good for businesses to grow big.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so too. I think that's the dream, right? It's like more good, more better. And now you've worked your way into a position where, you've graduated from CEO, as I will now call it. So yeah, on that vein, you've experienced an immense amount of growth. You're growing a super successful company. How do you balance that success with all the other things in your life that you like to do, right? Like you talked about, you love surfing, you love mountain biking, you're a dad, you're a family guy, you've got awesome little kids. How do you balance all that success and all that growth with everything else that you want and everything else that's fulfilling in your life?
Yeah, I mean, so I would start by saying that one of the impetuses for me finding a GM to come in was to be better at balancing that. And, if I'm being honest, like it's really hard to do that, spend time for yourself and for your family and your kids and everything while also dedicating the amount of time needed to run the business and be of service to the business. So that was one of the main reasons why I went out and sought a GM. So I don't want to pretend like I'm this master of balance here, but if you're in the financial, if you're a business owner listening to this podcast, and you're in the financial position to hire someone to help with like some of the key strategic decisions, like, and you feel a little underwater like I did, like it has so far been money well spent in my mind. So that's like the disclaimer, I guess. But maybe a better answer would be that it just forces you to prioritize. Like any new big task you take on will inherently pull time away from the last big thing you were working on. And you just need to rigorously prioritize. And, sometimes I get it wrong for sure. But, kids, obviously, like that's a big one. I mean, that totally flips your life on its head. And when you have kids, you really do reprioritize things, at least hopefully you do. And it just makes you really take a step back and look at things. And so I think for me, it coincided nicely, actually, in hindsight, with the business getting to a place where we had like a layer of managers, and there was sort of like an executive team that would set strategy. There was a layer of people that would execute strategy. There was a support layer under that. And so for me, it did coincide nicely where we had already sort of established those tiers within the company of employees and sort of what they were focused working on. And so it allowed me to just stay higher level, and it forced me to stay higher level. And, there are times where like I'll be really deep in work, and that's taking the vast majority of my time. And then after that kind of window is closed and the strategy's been set and it's time to do it, I have like a lot more free time and my schedule's wide open, and I can spend time, being with my kids, spend time mountain biking, whatever it may be. So it's just about like knowing what the priority is in the moment, I think. And then of course, if anything happens with your kids, that becomes the top priority. If they get sick or get hurt or something like that. So it's just having to understand that and just sort of like re-underwrite what your priorities are when all these new things layer into your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm navigating that too right now. And I think the only way that I am, again, like not claiming to be a master at this, because I don't think you can be. I think we're all just flowing through life doing the best we can. But yeah, it's like just sometimes work is the priority, but it's hopefully not always going to be, right? If you get to a point where like suddenly you're super stressed out and you're working all the time and you have literally no time for family, no time for yourself, and your balance is way off. But if you have to like grind it out, it's going to be a hard week. You're going to make it through the weekend, and you know that next week's going to be easier because you got through that bulk of that stuff that you needed to get through. I don't know. And then I'm also just like a big fan of like micro adventures, right? Whether it's just 45-minute mountain bike rides or picking up the kids and doing something cool outside. It's like those moments matter too, and those moments. No, I love it. But tell me, so you actually did get to do a super cool mountain bike race with mutual friend of ours, Chris, in Mexico. When was that? 2 years ago?
It was last October. So I don't know, 6-7 months ago. Yeah, it was awesome. It was my first time. It's called Transierra Norte in Oaxaca. And it's my first time doing it. I had a buddy who did it the year before, but it's this amazing like backcountry enduro race over 5 days. That's totally blind. So you don't pre-ride any of the trails. And I might get this wrong, but I want to say the stats were like, I think it was like 57,000 feet of descending over 5 days. And only, I don't know, 15 or 20,000 of ascending. So there's like part shuttle, part climbing, but it was just a huge amount of riding over 5 days. And there's all the cultural overlay on top of it as well. Like you're finishing stages and like there's cows on the side of the trail, and like you're kind of riding through these towns, and you can like stop and get a beer at this little store. And it's just like the whole thing was so cool. I would absolutely do this trip every single year. The challenge with it, at least for me, is my now 5-year-old's birthday was the day after I got back. And the day after it ends every year. They do the same dates. And it was just like really hard for my wife to plan his whole birthday, basically, without me there and set up and all that. And so that's the challenge it's presenting for me now.
Yeah.
Oh, this race is awesome. If you are listening to this and you're a mountain biker, like, and it's, you need to be a serious mountain biker. Obviously, you need to like know how to ride all of this type of terrain, but that experience is amazing.
Cool. Very cool. So we'll drop that one in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like, I don't know, like I got my mountain bike out for the first time this last weekend, and like I was just on like a quick ride just from my house, and like just I don't know, exercise and being outside. I feel like you're had all these ideas for my business. I'm like, my brain just never turns off anyway. But I don't know if that's like how you felt just on that trip with Chris. It's almost like a work trip because you're with another entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and then you're like in this flow state, and you're probably, I don't know, at least is that how you work too? Is like you get some of your
Yeah.
best ideas when you're like out there, and
It's not necessarily, so this isn't, I don't think unique to exercise. I think this is something that people who do a lot of exercise feel. So I don't meditate. I wish I did meditate. I can't do it. I've tried. I aspire to it one day, but I think that a lot of people, what they get out of that is just the clear mind, like nothing in their mind that opens up paths for new ideas to come in. And the way that I can sort of force my mind to be clear and not, frazzled up with a bunch of ideas and stuff is if I'm doing something like mountain biking or skiing or whatever, and I'm just focused on that thing for even a brief period of time, allows your brain to kind of rest and open up some new pathways for new ideas to come in. So some people it's exercise, some people it's sort of like flow sports, some people it's meditation, but doing that thing that gets you into that headspace is super, super important, I think, for new ideas to come in.
yeah.
It would certainly be easier to like be able to just plop down and meditate for 30 minutes and just open up. But we got to get all the gear out and go drive somewhere, so.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same thing chemically. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah. It's so true. I don't know. The fuzziness. It's the only time it goes away. I can actually think. Well, Wylie, thank you so much for your time. This is the Operate Business Podcast. I'm going to close with the same question that I ask everybody. And it's just the Operate moments. I feel like we've caught up after a long day skiing and, reflecting back on your journey with Rumpl. Just want to know like what you're most proud of.
I think I'm most proud when I hear, frankly, people like you talk about how much you love the brand. Like we get this a lot. A lot of people write in just to tell us how much love they have for the brand, and you read reviews online and things like that. And it's like, I think people feel like this really does add some value to their life, and they appreciate what we're doing, and like it's small, but it goes a long way, and it makes me feel really good that we've created something people really love. So I'd say that's what I'm most proud of.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Have so much fun in China. If that's even the right thing to say. Good luck. I respect you. I'm rooting for you. It's not easy. I'm just admiring from afar. So keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Operate Business Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an insight-packed episode. If you're feeling generous, leave us a review. It helps more business builders like you find the show. Got a story or a question you'd love us to cover? Connect with us at falllinedigital.com. That's FALLINEDIGITAL.com. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep learning, and don't forget to enjoy the journey.